They told you to wait longer. The top 1% engineered a system where waiting was never an option because the choice disappeared before temptation arrived. Every self-help book, every podcast, every guru has lied to you about delayed gratification. It's not about willpower. It's not about resisting urges. Willpower is the strategy of amateurs. The elite don't resist short-term rewards. They eliminate the moment of choice entirely. They don't rely on discipline. They design environments where impulsive decisions are structurally impossible. This isn't psychology for the masses. This is the hidden architecture of wealth builders who compound silently while everyone else burns out trying to stay strong. And in this video, you'll see exactly how they do it. Starting with why your brain treats your future self like a stranger you're not obligated to help.
Your future self is not you, not to your brain, anyway. And that is not poetic metaphor, that is hard neuroscience. When you imagine yourself 5, 10, or 20 years from now, your brain does not activate the same neural circuitry it uses when thinking about you right now. Instead, it lights up regions associated with thinking about other people, strangers, acquaintances, even fictional characters. The medial prefrontal cortex, the very core of selfhood, dims. Your future self becomes a silhouette in a fogged mirror. Familiar in outline, but emotionally distant. This is why saving feels like giving money to someone else. Why investing seems abstract. Why retirement triggers no visceral urgency. Because your nervous system treats it like donating to a cause you vaguely support, but do not personally inhabit. Now, visualize this. You are standing at a crossroads. To your left, a glowing door labeled, "Now." Warm light spills out. Music, laughter, a new watch on your wrist. A weekend getaway booked in seconds. Dopamine floods your system just imagining it. To your right, a plain steel door. No sign, no sound, just silence. Behind it, compound interest, tax-advantaged accounts, equity stakes, future freedom. But your brain registers none of it, because silence does not trigger reward pathways. This asymmetry is not a flaw. It is evolutionary wiring. For 99% of human history, future you was statistically unlikely to exist. Starvation, predators, disease, survival favored the present. But in a world of longevity, markets, and compounding, that wiring is now your greatest liability. Here is the data. In a controlled experiment by Hal Hirschfield at UCLA, participants were shown either a photo of their current face or an AI-generated image of their face aged 70 years. Those who saw their future selves were twice as likely to allocate money to long-term savings. Not because they became more responsible, but because the visual bridge collapsed the identity gap. Their brains finally recognize, that old man, that is me. But the elite do not stop at photos. They go further. A founder I advised last year did not just set up automatic transfers. He wrote a letter from his 65-year-old self to his current self, signed it, sealed it, kept it in his safe. Every time he considered a non-essential purchase over $1,000, he had to read it first. The letter did not say save more. It said, you skipped dinner with your granddaughter last week because you were stressed about cash flow. I am writing this so you remember. Every dollar you spend today on noise is a minute I lose with her tomorrow. That is not budgeting. That is temporal empathy engineered through narrative. And it rewired his behavior within weeks. Because once your nervous system stops treating your future self as a stranger, delayed gratification stops feeling like sacrifice. It starts feeling like loyalty. But here is the brutal truth. Even if you feel deeply connected to your future self, your willpower is still a fragile shield against a world designed to exploit your impulses. One notification, one sale alert, one moment of stress, and the entire architecture collapses, unless the choice was never yours to make in the first place. Which brings us to the real secret of the top 1%. They do not rely on feeling. They build systems so airtight, temptation never reaches the decision layer. And that is where pre-commitment begins. Willpower fails because it is reactive. Systems win because they are preemptive. You do not out-discipline temptation. You out-engineer it. Imagine your brain as a fortress. Willpower is the lone guard at the gate, tired, distracted, bribable. Every ad, every notification, every limited time offer is a siege weapon trained on that single point of failure. Now imagine a fortress with no gates, no doors, no drawbridge, just walls so high, so seamless, that attackers do not even try. That is pre-commitment, not resistance, removal. The top 1% do not ask themselves, should I spend this? They have already answered it, months, even years in advance, by designing systems where the question never arises. Take Ray Dalio. Every dollar he earns flows through a rigid architecture. Automatic allocations to long-term trusts, illiquid assets, and philanthropic vehicles. By the time cash hits his personal account, the wealth-building decisions are already made. Irreversible. Done. Or consider a lesser-known founder I worked with. She signed a legal contract with her future self. Not symbolic. Notarized. If she withdrew money from her investment account for non-emergency reasons, 50% would be donated to a cause she actively opposes. The psychological cost of betrayal outweighed any short-term gain. This is not extreme. It is precise, and science backs it. In a 2014 study published in Management Science, researchers gave participants the option to voluntarily restrict their own access to savings accounts. Those who chose commitment accounts, where early withdrawal triggered penalties, saved 82% more over a year than those with unrestricted access. Not because they earned more, not because they wanted it more, because they removed the moment of weakness from the equation. Your brain has a fatal flaw. It is optimized for immediate survival, not long-term strategy. But your environment? That you can redesign. So the elite do not rely on mood. They build frictionless paths toward discipline and landmines around distraction. Automatic transfers on payday, credit cards locked in time safes, digital wallets that require dual approval for purchases over $100, investment platforms that hide portfolio balances to prevent emotional trading. These are not hacks. They are behavioral contracts written in code, steel, and law. Because here is what no one tells you. Delayed gratification is not about waiting. It is about making sure the only available path leads to your future self. But even the best system leaks, for you do not understand the hidden tax no one sees. Because every small treat is not just a moment of pleasure. It is a silent withdrawal from a compound interest account you will never see until it is too late. And that is exactly what we expose next. Every small treat is not a reward. It is a silent withdrawal from your future net worth. You feel good for 5 minutes. Your wealth pays for it for decades. Picture your financial life as a glass tank filled with clear water. Each dollar you save, invest, or compound adds another drop. Now imagine a tiny pinprick near the bottom, barely visible. Does not seem like much, but over time, that leak drains the entire system. That pinprick? It is the $8 coffee you did not need. The impulse buy during a scroll. The I deserve this. Justification after a long day. Individually, they are harmless. Collectively, they are catastrophic. Because compounding does not just work on what you save, it punishes what you leak. Let us make it real. A 28-year-old professional spends $120 a month on non-essential convenience. Premium subscriptions they do not use, takeout instead of meal prep, last-minute upgrades. Nothing extreme. Just normal, modern spending. Now run the numbers. If that $120 were invested monthly, in a diversified portfolio averaging 7% annual return, by age 65, it would grow to $214,000. Not thousands, not tens of thousands, over $200,000. Gone, not lost in a crash, not stolen, voluntarily handed over, one dopamine hit at a time. This is not hypothetical. A 2023 study by the National Bureau of Economic Research tracked 10 zero-high-income earners over 12 years. The single strongest predictor of long-term wealth accumulation was not salary, inheritance, or even investment IQ. It was leakage control, the ability to eliminate micro-indulgences disguised as lifestyle choices. The elite do not see these as treats. They see them as opportunity erosion. Warren Buffett still lives in the same house he bought in 1958 for $31,500. Not because he is cheap, but because he understands. Every dollar spent outside his core values is a vote against his future self. And here is the psychological trap. Your brain registers the pleasure of the purchase instantly, but the cost, that is amortized across decades, so diffuse, so distant, your nervous system ignores it. That is why reframing is essential. Next time you are about to spend impulsively, ask, am I buying this, or am I selling $500 of my future freedom? Because that is the real exchange rate. And once you start seeing indulgence as leakage, you stop celebrating small rewards. You start protecting silent growth. But here is the deeper truth. Even if you stop all leaks, if I will still lose, if your brain is not wired to enjoy the process of building, because discipline without reward is unsustainable. But what if the act of compounding itself could become addictive? That is not fantasy. It is neurochemical engineering. And that is exactly how the top 1% turn patience into pleasure. The wealthy do not delay gratification. They redirect it. To them, patience is not suffering. It is a high-resolution feedback loop designed to deliver dopamine not from spending, but from watching value grow. Imagine to people saving $1,000 a month. Person A sees it as sacrifice. No vacations, no upgrades, no fun. Every transfer feels like loss. Person B opens their portfolio every Sunday like it is a private ritual. They do not just see numbers. See time converted into equity, discipline crystallized into assets. Their brain lights up not when they spend, but when they compound. That is not discipline. That is rewired reward circuitry. Neuroscience calls it dopaminergic recoding. The process of shifting your brain's reward prediction error from immediate consumption to long-term creation. The elite do not suppress desire, they reroute it. Take Naval Ravikant. He once said, I did not want to consume. I want to build something that lasts, not as philosophy, as neurochemistry. Or consider a hedge fund partner, I advised. Every Friday at 5 p.m. he reviews his net worth trajectory, not to obsess, but to feel the momentum. He tracks not just balance, but compound velocity. How many days of future freedom each dollar buys? That ritual is not vanity. It is reinforcement engineering, and it is backed by hard data. A 2021 MIT study used real-time Furry to monitor investors during market fluctuations. Those who derived pleasure from process metrics, contribution consistency, diversification depth, time in market, showed significantly lower cortisol spikes during downturns and were 3 times less likely to panic sell. Their brains were not stronger. They would simply trained reward pathways to fire on building, not buying. You can do this too, starting today. Stop celebrating purchases. Start celebrating transfers. Turn your brokerage app into a dashboard of silent victories. Add a monthly ritual. Light a candle. pour a glass of water, open your portfolio, and say aloud, "This is me, investing in myself." Sounds simple? Could, because simplicity is how habits embed. Within weeks, your nervous system will begin craving the quiet thrill of compounding more than the fleeting buzz of consumption. But here is the catch. Even the most rewarding internal ritual fails if your environment is still screaming distraction, because your brain does not operate in a vacuum. It is constantly scanning for cues. And if your phone, your desk, your browser are wired for impulse, no amount of willpower or ritual will hold. Which means the next layer is not psychological, it is spatial. It is about designing a world where focus compounds automatically and distraction requires effort. And that is where true behavioral architecture begins. Your environment is either compounding your focus or compounding your distractions. There is no neutral space. Every object, every app, every notification is either pulling you toward your future self or anchoring you in the noise of now. Picture a bonsai tree. Left wild, it grows chaotic, branches fighting for light, energy wasted in every direction. But under precise conditions, controlled soil, measured sun, deliberate pruning, channels all its force into dense, elegant growth. You are that tree, and your environment is the pot. The elite do not rely on motivation to stay focused. They design spaces where distraction requires effort. Discipline happens by default. Take Paul Graham, founder of Y Combinator. For decades, he wrote essays in a cabin, with no internet, no phone, not even a clock. Not because he lacked willpower, but because he understood. Attention is not conserved. It is allocated by context. Or consider a venture capitalist I worked with in Zurich. Her entire digital life is split into two identities. Operator. Clean desktop. Only productivity apps. Grayscale screen mode. Notifications off. Consumer. Social media. News. Shopping. Confined to a secondary device. She can only access after 8 p.m. and only if she has completed her daily wealth-building actions. She did not delete temptation. She quarantined it. And science confirms this works. A 2023 University of Chicago study tracked knowledge workers using friction engineering, adding just extra steps, a password, a 10-second delay before accessing distracting sites. Result: a 57% drop in time-wasting behavior within 1 week. Not through willpower, through architecture. Now look at your own space. Is your phone on your desk? Are trading apps next to gaming icons? Does your browser auto-open tabs that whisper, "Check this, buy this, watch this"? Each of those is a cognitive tax, a silent drain on your executive function. But you can reverse it. Start tonight. Move all financial apps to your home screen. Make them visible, tactile, honored. Hurry entertainment apps in folders labeled "Cost of Distraction." Set your phone to grayscale after 7 p.m. removing the dopamine-triggering colors that keep you scrolling. Keep a physical ledger on your desk, not for accounting, for ritual. Every time you automate a transfer, write it by hand. Feel the pen. Hear the page. Anchor the action in your senses. This is not minimalism. It is behavioral landscaping. Because your brain does not choose focus in the moment. It inherits it from the world you built yesterday. And when your environment is tuned for silent power, patience stops being a battle. It becomes your atmosphere. But even the cleanest personal system has a hidden vulnerability. You are still alone in it. Isolation is the silent killer of long-term discipline. Because the top 1% do not just build systems, they embed themselves in networks where short-term thinking carries social cost, and patience is the currency of belonging. That is not culture. That is structural enforcement. And it is the final layer of elite delayed gratification. Delayed gratification at scale is not personal, it is structural. The top 1% do not just practice patience. Embed it into networks where short-term thinking becomes socially costly, and long-term vision is the price of entry. Imagine two islands. On Island A, everyone celebrates quick wins, flashy purchases, viral fame, quarterly spikes. If you talk about 10-year plans, they call you naive. On Island B, the first question is not, what did you make this month? It is, what are you building that will not pay off for a decade? Which island compounds wealth? Which one burns out by 40? You already know. Because environment is not just physical. Tease is tribal. And your brain is wired to conform to the time horizon of your inner circle. Neuroscience confirms it. The dorsomedial prefrontal cortex, region that processes social norms, activates more strongly than the reward center. When you face peer judgment, we would rather lose money than lose status. So the elite weaponize this. They curate circles where impatience is quietly shamed, not through lectures, but through absence. No invites. No co-investment opportunities. No late-night strategy calls. Take a private equity founder I advised in Singapore. Every quarter, he hosts a closed dinner for 12 people. No pitch decks. No networking. Just one rule. If your biggest win this quarter was something that would not exist in 5 years, do not come. Over time, the group became a self-reinforcing engine of long-term thinking. Not because they are saints, but because deviation meant exclusion from the only table that mattered. This is not elitism. It is evolutionary design. And data proves its power. The 2022 Harvard study tracked 200 high net worth individuals over 8 years. Those embedded in long horizon tribes, communities with shared multi-decade goals, were 3.2 times more likely to maintain or grow wealth through market crashes, compared to equally skilled peers in short-term environments. Their secret? They did not rely on individual discipline. They made patience the social default. You can engineer this, even if you start by auditing your inputs. Who do you text after a win? Do they ask about legacy or likes? What podcasts fill your commute? Are they teaching tactics or timeless principles? In your mastermind, is scaling fast praised or questioned for its hidden fragility? Then act surgically. Add one person this month whose time horizon stretches beyond yours. Leave one group where urgency masquerades as importance. Replace one source of noise with a voice that speaks in decades, not days. Because delayed gratification does not thrive in isolation. It spreads like mycelium. Through connection, alignment, silent reinforcement. And once you are surrounded by those who measure success in generations, not quarters, your own patience stops feeling like effort. It becomes identity. But all of this, neuroscience, the systems, the rituals, the tribes, collapses. If you miss the final truth, true patience is not enduring the wait. It is designing a world where the only path forward is the one your future self already owns. And that insight is not taught. It is transferred, quietly, precisely, to those ready to receive it. True patience is not enduring the wait. It is designing a world where the only path forward is the one your future self already owns. This is not philosophy. It is operational design. And it is why 99% never cross the threshold. They think delayed gratification is something you do. The elite know it is something you build. You do not resist their bending. You remove the payment method. You do not force focus. You delete the app that fractures attention. You do not motivate consistency. You sign a contract that makes inconsistency socially or financially painful. Every act of elite patience begins long before the moment of temptation, in quiet rooms, with cold logic and irreversible decisions. And here is what no public course will tell you. The real leverage is not in your habits. It is in your architecture. Because willpower is biological, and biology fatigues. But systems are structural, and structure endures. So while others are battling their impulses at 11 p.m., you have already engineered a life where the right choice is the only choice available. That is not discipline. That is silent power. And it is the difference between hoping for wealth and guaranteeing it. You do not need more discipline. You need fewer decisions. Because every time you rely on willpower, you are fighting a brain wired for the past. While trying to build a future it cannot even feel, the pain is not in waiting. It is in watching years dissolve into micro-indulgences that felt harmless, until they became irreversible. And now you know, delayed gratification is not sacrifice. It is system design. It is identity fusion across time. It is environments that compound focus. It is tribes that make patience the price of belonging. And if you have internalized this, you are already operating on a different plane. But here is what comes next. Many who master this still fail to build real wealth. Not because they lack patience, but because they confuse busyness with leverage. They optimize tasks while ignoring strategy. They move fast on the wrong axis. And that is why, in the next video, we expose the silent trap, why people rarely become wealthy. Because time is not your constraint, direction is. If this resonated, if you felt that quiet click of recognition, you are not alone. This is for the builders, the architects, the ones who compound in silence. Welcome home.